Hi, this is Kevin Neild from Endeavor Sports Performance. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how we integrate the hockey training programs here. When most people think of the VertiMax, they usually think about lower body training in the form of resisted vertical jumping, and rightfully so. The VertiMax is a great tool to improve lower body and hip drive, as the bands provide resistance against the vertical acceleration while the athlete's jumping. With our hockey players, we usually have them perform contrast jumps, meaning they'd perform a few jumps against the resistance from the VertiMax and then a few jumps without the resistance. The idea is to overload the neuromuscular system using the resistance and then immediately capitalize on the body's increased neural drive to the lower body and hip muscles without the load. So in doing this, we'll follow a 3-stage progression. Each progression we usually do for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. It really depends on the kids, but with this we'll move from discontinuous jumps in the first phase, where the athlete will reset and stand up tall between each jump. In the next phase we'll move to a rebound jump, where the athlete jumps as hard as they can, and then as soon as they land they immediately rebound into a second jump, stick that landing, and then reset before performing the next jump. Third phase, we move into continuous jumps. So the athlete will jump as high as they can, then as soon as they hit the ground they'll move into the next jump, as soon as they hit the ground they'll move into the next jump for all the reps for that set. We follow this progression for both the resisted and unresisted portion of the contrast set. So if we're having an athlete do a jump with a rebound against the resistance from the VertiMax, as soon as we unstrap them we have them do a jump with a rebound that same way. We've also found that the VertiMax is really a great way to minimize explosive power decrements in athletes that have suffered an upper body injury and can't do Olympic lifts. So, with hockey we see a lot of shoulder separations and dislocations and labral repairs and things of that nature. So, we can still load the hip and the lower body muscles in these explosive power patterns without putting any stress or, without harming or interfering with rehab to the shoulder. This is just an example of the vertical jump with rebound that I mentioned in the previous slide. So you can see as soon as he hits the ground from that first jump, he's immediately bounding into the next one. Have him do a couple reps against the resistance, then take the bands off, do a few without it. So we can also use the VertiMax for a handful of hockey-specific movements. So this video just demonstrates a resisted rapid stride recovery. From a muscular stress standpoint, this is a great exercise to strengthen the hip flexor and adductor complex in a very hockey-relevant pattern. So, this is one of the strategies we use in the off-season to help minimize the risk of preseason hip flexor and adductor strains. This also allows us to assess the athlete's stride pattern and hip and lumbar stability. In a static environment like this, it's really easy to cue a player to do things like sit back and down more to keep their back flat, which just helps them build awareness of what their body's doing when they have to do these stride patterns and crossover patterns on the ice. With these resisted hip turns, it's a similar concept as the previous slide, but in a more goalie specific movement. So, the load is applied to the back leg here, which will stress the adductor complex on that leg. But the stance leg is also important here, as it's responsible for controlling the external rotation of that stance leg hip on the way out, and then controlling or really driving the internal rotation to pull the pelvis back into a more neutral alignment towards the starting position. So I'll play that again. You can also do resisted lateral and diagonal movements, like I showed with that resisted stride recovery using a slide board. So with these, we cue the players to think of using their back leg to pull their bodies back up to the top. We always start with body weight and then progress to using the VertiMax to resist the movement. If you don't have a slide board, no sweat, you can do this. If you have a valve slide, you can throw that under their back foot. And I've even heard of some people using paper plates. So a lot of low budget alternatives. We've also integrated the VertiMax into some of our conditioning protocols. So by providing a low load resistance to the ankle, you stress the adductor complex on that same side leg to a greater degree, both as they decelerate and recover the stride leg. So as the athlete pushes off and they get full extension on that back leg, you're going to see the band really starts to tension, and then that's what puts some extra stress while that leg's in a fully lengthened position, which is exactly where that muscle group is stressed the most on the ice while the athlete's skating. Similarly, you can load the hip using the VertiMax. Similar idea, this just forces the athlete to generate more propulsive force during the stride and decelerate more force when they're returning to the side nearest the platform. That's it. Hopefully this gives you guys a few new ideas for exercises you can use and how you can get creative with the VertiMax to train your athletes. If you want more information or have any questions, you can check out kevinneal.com and endeavorfit.com.